Welcome to In Conversations With, a series of podcasts and events where we bring to you what's happening in the community around you. My name is Sarah Lacumber. I'm the curator of the Technological University of the Shannon Art Collection and also the Student Services Manager in the college. We hope that these conversations will inspire you, challenge you, comfort you, and hopefully waken your curiosity. We're going to hear from a mix of panelled guests here today, and we're here in the beautiful Luan Gallery in these wonderful surroundings in Athlone, and we'll show you more of the gallery when we go inside. Come with me. Now, before we meet with our guests, I want to pause for just a little minute. Have a think about your favourite song, or maybe a scene in a movie that you felt really compelled by or moved you recently. Or maybe it's a song that you don't like, that when it comes on the radio, you definitely want to turn it off. Whether you know it or not, you've been engaged in art in your daily life, day to day, from the phone you choose, to a car you might admire, to the clothes you wear. Art is part of your life. And today is all about expanding your horizons and giving you an insight into the world of visual art in the context of the beautiful Luan Gallery that we're here in today. And we picked a great day for it. The sun is shining, so come with me. So we're going to start our conversation today with Aoife Banks, who is the curator of the Luan Gallery in Athlone. Hi Aoife, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Aoife, can I just say, I can't get over, we're so lucky today. We have a beautiful day in Athlone, but we're also in the beautiful surroundings of the Luan Gallery. Can you tell us a little bit about the Luan Gallery?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Luan Gallery celebrates its 11th birthday this year.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. This is my first birthday with Luan Gallery, so I'm delighted to be a part of it. So we've been open for 11 years, and we're the municipal visual arts gallery for Athlone and Westmeath. In the 11 years that we've been open, we've had 80 exhibitions so far and exhibited over 700 artists. So we've had a wide reach. And we focus on artists from the early stages of their career through to artists that are established and renowned internationally. And we look to support local, national and international artists.
Fabulous. And can I ask you about your job? Curator. That sounds like a very fancy title. What does a curator do? What is your job here?
I'd tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
Hope not today.
So as the curator, I always say that my main role as a curator is to keep my finger on the pulse as to what's happening in the art scene locally, nationally and internationally. My role within the gallery is to keep the gallery current, to showcase artists on a local, national and international level. And I programme with the help of a programming panel and with the team here. I programme the exhibitions and the events that happen in the gallery.
And this exhibition that we're amongst now, we're here together today within, is the Symbols of Subject exhibition, which you curated and which features a selection of work from the TUS Art Collection, the Technological University of the Shannon, alongside student work as well at boardwalk level. Can you tell us about the show you've curated here today?
Yeah, absolutely. At the beginning stages of curating Symbols of Subject, you and I had some great conversations and ideas around, we want to show work that's in the TUS collection, but what could that exhibition look like? And what do we want to do with that exhibition? What do we want it to mean? And we had some very fruitful conversations, and we both came to the conclusion that we wanted something that would be accessible and interesting to anybody. And we wanted more people who don't normally engage with the arts to come in and engage with visual artwork and to be able to walk away feeling like they've connected with visual arts. So for Symbols of Subject, I wanted to choose work from the TUS collection that was quite abstract, didn't have any definitive objective figures or symbols or anything very literal within it. And the reason for that, and the reason for my selection of the artwork that we see in the gallery space, is I wanted to choose work that people could come in and see what they wanted to see in it. It can be interpretive, it's subjective, it's open to what the viewer, it's up to them. So someone coming in could look at one painting and think something completely different than another person coming in. And that subjectivity, I think, is really important. And that is the beginning of a relationship with visual arts. So for somebody to come in and feel a connection or see themselves in an artwork is really the goal.
So in a way, does it start out with a conversation in your own head when you're interacting with the picture? And it might be that you might like the colour blue, as we see in the beautiful work behind us here, or you might be drawn to the shape, or it might actually feel like it's taking form as something else for you and you can see something else behind it.
Yeah.
So it's an internal conversation.
It is.
Initially.
It
There's
is.
no one there to judge that conversation.
This is exactly it. I think that, and I'm speaking from my own experience, but certainly a lot of people have said this to me as well. Coming into an arts gallery, you kind of feel like you should know things. You kind of feel like you should get it. You should understand what the artwork is about, or you should have this knowledge of art history. And it can be very off-putting.
Never gone into a gallery.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think it's just really reassuring to know that when you come into a space, forget what you know and just experience what's in front of you, and that is just as valid. Yeah. And when thinking about this exhibition, I was thinking about my own education in fine art and in visual culture. And one of the seminal texts for visual culture theory is a text by Roland Barthes, a French theorist and critic.
Now that sounds very fancy.
Very fancy. But this is a great text that I'll just give you a 3-liner on, because really you don't need to read it. But basically it's called Death of the Author. And it's about how traditionally we'll try and interpret a painting or a book or a film through what we think the reason for it being made was. What did the director, what did the painter, what did the writer, what were they trying to say here? And Roland Barthes in the Death of the Author essay says that really doesn't matter. It's actually just as relevant, if not more relevant, for the viewer or the reader to decide what it means. What's their interpretation of that?
So their reaction is the most important part of that engagement.
That's exactly it.
Well, that's very refreshing to know, because I'll sometimes look at films and go, I don't get what's going on here.
Right.
So in the same way, it's about what your own impression is. It's not about what the director intended for the film or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And so if someone has never been to an art gallery before or never looked at an abstract painting in that way, what tips would you give them, or how would you set them on the road to starting to engage with this kind of artwork?
I would say that engaging with visual artwork is engaging with yourself. I think visual art is really a trigger point for you to react. And if you allow yourself to sit with something and look at something, and once you take away that idea, I should know this, I should know that, that's not relevant. What's relevant really is what you're seeing and how it makes you feel. Yeah. And allowing that kind of inner monologue and conversation to flow in you. Because visual artwork for me is kind of visual philosophy. It kind of helps you think about what's important to you, how do you feel about the world around you, and how do you interact with the world around you.
And it could even be that someone is having a very busy day and there's a lot going on in their lives, and it might be a nice little pause to come into a beautiful space like Luan and take in the artwork and the feeling of calm and also friendliness that's here. I have to say, the people at the front desk are so friendly. You'll always be made feel welcome in Luan.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I love about this space. And coming into a gallery is a nice little break from the norm. I think even myself, I work in a gallery and sometimes I have the blinkers on, and it's really easy to get caught up in the stresses of every day. Yeah. And coming into a gallery and looking at artwork is a nice kind of shake up from what you're used to, from what you're used to seeing to. It allows you to remember that there's other things outside of what's stressing you that day. Or
the world is a big place.
The world's a big place, and here's some ways that other people view it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Aoife.
Thanks.
Thank you. We're going to turn to Anne Rigney. We're very honoured to have you here, Anne. And Anne, you are a visual artist, and your work is also in our wonderful exhibit here today, Symbols of Subject. Can you tell me about your involvement in the art scene?
Well, gosh, I'm at it a long time now, probably 40 years. It's a long time, and I suppose as my passion for art started when I was a young girl, I was always drawing and scribbling, and I come from a big family, so my father had a huge influence on me because he used to do little drawings on Woodbine packets. He was a big smoker. I think everyone smoked then, you know, and I was fascinated by this, so I would be drawing as well, and he'd encourage me to draw. So I think that got me going, and that progressed to doing some paintings and spending any money I had on paints. There was a shop here in Athlone, I don't know if anyone remembers it, called McCormick's. It was a photography. Well, yeah. There was a brother and sister running it, and I used to go in there and spend my money on tubes of oil paints. I was about 12 or 13 or something at the time, and got to know them very well. And then I started entering local art competitions, and I remember winning a competition in Westmeath. I think it was the Westmeath competition, you know, for that age group, and I got £50. And £50 in 1990 or 1969, my goodness, was a huge amount of money. So my mother was impressed with that, to know that I could actually get some money, and it hasn't always been the story. It's a struggle to make a living as an artist. I don't mind saying that, and you want to be very brave to go into the arts. You know, you don't realise what you're getting yourself into unless you go into the administration side of it.
Little jig there, Eva. Mike, I'm paying for my sins.
I know, but it's all necessary. But the artists are often the ones that struggle to make a living unless you're really, really well known, you know. And it's wonderful that TUS, you know, that they collect work from artists and local artists. But that's where it started for me. And actually, I'm an ex-graduate of TUS. You know, I studied art and design. Yeah, yes. So.
That's great. I didn't know that about you. That's an interesting.
Did you not? No.
Fact.
Yeah,
I'll take
yeah.
that one to the bank.
Yeah.
So obviously your work is displayed here.
Yes.
And at boardwalk level, we also have student work on display.
Yes.
What is your feeling about that? When we have an exhibition here that has professional artists work alongside upcoming artists.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful for the students because. You know, I remember the excitement myself of getting my work into my first exhibition, you know, or having my first exhibition, and the absolute thrill and excitement of that. And, you know, if I'd had that encouragement when I was 17, 18, when I was a student, or 19, it would have just really given me such a boost, such a lift to see my work up in a gallery, you know, with other artists and established artists. I think it's fantastic, you know. So no, it was a great idea to do that, and well done to Luan and TUS for including the students. And I'm delighted to be showing with them. It's wonderful.
We're looking forward to welcoming that graduate class of 23 back. When they come to graduate here now in a few weeks.
Oh, I must come into that.
They'll be coming with their families, and Luan are very graciously going to have a cup of tea ready for them so they can come and see their own work here in the gallery in this beautiful, beautiful setting. And I'd like to switch it up a little bit and talk about what are the other benefits of engaging with art. So, to my mind, art is food for the soul.
Yes.
And there has been long established benefits of engaging with art in terms of helping people with their mental health, helping them feel understood, helping them when they're maybe feeling a little bit down, including for the artists themselves in terms of expressing what are their innermost feelings and thoughts and all of that. What is your opinion on the subject of art as self-care?
I think it's, for me personally, I can talk about it's really kept me sane. You know, I really feel when I'm working, when I'm creating work, I feel most myself. You know, it's a playful thing when you're creating art. And recently, I've been creating art with my grandchild who is 3, which is really great crack because you do something which you think is really precious. She said, "Granny, you know, paint me the sun or whatever," and I'll paint the sun. And she'll come in with black paint and she'll just all over it, you know. And we just roll around laughing, the two of us then, you know, because it's not precious, you know, she's just having a lot of fun with it. And I think it was Picasso said, you know, he spent all his life learning how to be such an amazing artist. And he said what he really wanted to do was go back and paint like a child. So for me, interacting with her, it's good for my soul as well. I love working with her. But getting back to that, I've always felt, you know, my moods can be up and down. I think a lot of artists, we can have a bit of depression sometimes, you know. A lot of my friends, we would talk about that. And it's usually when we're not being creative. But I find my art has always brought me back. And recently I've started writing poetry as well. And it always connects that part of my soul. It heals something inside of me. Even if I don't show the work, it's very healing. But the other side of it is, as an artist, I've always struggled to make a living as an artist. But most artists we have part-time jobs as well. I don't now at the moment, I'm working full-time at my work now. But it's like, I worked in the mental health services in Roscommon for over 20 years, part-time, working in the psychiatric unit as not an art therapist, but facilitating art workshops with patients. And I could see the benefits of art with the patients. It slowed them down. They were really engaging with the work. And it's mindfulness. People talk about mindfulness now. It's the buzzword, isn't it, and all that. But when you're creating something, you're almost in a meditative state when you're working and engaging with something. And for me, that was a wonderful part of that part-time work I had, because oftentimes you'd introduce some people who would be in there and they'd never worked with art materials ever in their lifetimes. And some of them would be really, really creative, really have a real talent.
It was in them all along.
It was in them all along. But, you know, in their young days, there was no art. Even for myself, there was no art in national school. It was just that I had the interest, and my dad encouraged me at home. You know, do you know what I'm saying? It was so sad.
People who think they couldn't draw a straight line.
Yeah.
About that expression.
Yeah.
And it's not just even about being able to make art yourself.
No.
The act of engaging with the art.
Yes,
can,
yes.
Can lift you in many, many ways.
Absolutely.
And I love your story about working with your grandchild. I vividly had a flashback to doing a mural for a friend's daughter.
Yes.
And it was The Wizard of Oz. And she said to me, I could see her looking at it, and she was a little bit reserved. I was quite proud of the mural. And she said, there's a drip there, you didn't colour inside the line. So that was her perspective.
Yes, yes,
you know,
yes.
But we start education with finger painting, don't we?
Absolutely.
That's how a child starts their journey. When we start out in life, it's through creating. And sometimes we can lose that as we get along.
Yes.
And we can lose that joy.
The joy of engaging. But that just reminded me of something, though. That just what you said there reminded me of a funny experience. A good few years ago, the Office of Public Works bought some work I was with a group called Working Artists Roscommon, which Mike would be familiar with, but they bought work from us. And I had one particular piece that I had just about finished, and it was drying, and the paint was very, very thick on it, you know, and it was waiting to go to this collection. And I went down after a few hours and looked at it, and it was red paint. My daughter had stuck her she had stuck her finger in it. I actually left it, you know, because it was slightly abstract, you know, it was a tree, but it was very funny.
Brilliant, love it.
You know, yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
You're very welcome.
And when people come in here and they go to look at your work and the work all around us, how would you encourage them to engage with the exhibition or with any exhibition?
I was thinking about that last night, you know what I mean? I remember years ago, I used to, when my children were small, I used to go to Dublin, to galleries. I loved to go up to Dublin for a day just to get away from the house and all that jazz, and go to galleries in Dublin. And I never felt comfortable, and I was an artist. You'd get some very hoity-toity person sitting at a desk with their nose stuck in the air. They wouldn't even say hello to you. And I always felt uncomfortable. Now, it didn't stop me going, but I always felt very uncomfortable in these galleries, you know. But having said that, I don't feel that here. I'm older now and wiser, you know what I mean? I was probably insecure then myself and shy, you know, in your 20s, you're very shy. I was a very, very shy person. I still am, believe it or not. But I would say to people now, just try it. Go into a gallery. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be able to talk in an intellectual way about art. just look at it. It's just another form of expressing. It's like music. As I said to you earlier, some music I like, some music I can't bear to listen to, and I don't question that. But it's the same with art. You know, you like abstract art. Some people like abstract art. Some people like figurative art. They want it very representational. So you'll find something you like, and if you don't, have a good look at what's in front of you, and maybe you like something, or even think about why you don't like it. But do come in. This Luan gallery belongs to everybody.
That's right.
The art belongs to everybody. We have paid for it with taxpayers' money. We have paid for this collection of art into us through the 1% for art scheme, and people need to be reminded of that. It's not belonging to the gallery. It's not belonging to the college. It's belonging to everybody. So I would just encourage people to remember that and come in and enjoy it.
Well said, well said. And we're big on the philosophy that art is for all.
For everybody.
Which is why this collection
Yes.
is hanging on the walls, on the corridors. Students and people pass by it every day.
Yes.
So it gives them the opportunity to interact with it. all the time.
Absolutely. And I want to say one more thing as well. Just before I come over here, I'm a spiritual person. I consider myself a very spiritual person, but not a religious person. But I always like to go in, and even this morning I did it in the church, and I just lit a candle there for peace in Israel at the moment. But also to go in and look at the Harry Clark windows.
That's right.
That's right beside us.
Amazing.
And you have this on our doorstep. We have the gallery here. I often think going into a gallery is the equivalent sometimes of going into a church. It's like a meditation. I remember going to a Tony O'Malley exhibition in the Sligo Art Gallery, and I just felt wow.
Yeah.
I was in another world, you know.
And if you've never come into an exhibition space before, it's
Yes.
hard to imagine that. But
Yes.
I suppose we'd encourage people to be curious.
To be curious,
And
yeah.
maybe after listening to our podcast today,
Yes.
spark some curiosity.
I hope so.
To encourage people in to be welcomed by the wonderfully friendly staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Mike, I'm going to turn to you now as part of our conversation, last but not least. Mike Fitzpatrick, the Dean of LSAD, Limerick School of Art and Design, and you're also the Director for Cultural Engagement at TUS. Tell us about your job.
Well, it's great fun. It's a really wonderful job. Sometimes it's just so much fun in the things of that you're with a really diverse amount of people, and that diversity in every shape and form in terms of, I think, the latest starter we had with this amazingly energetic retarded, but he was 69 when he started, and he was so fantastic. We brought him back 5 years later after he'd finished, 5 years after that, that he was quite old, to be our expert learner for an international panel. And just that diversity of people, that's great. And also the fact that it isn't like, I remember when I arrived first, and the art school was always seen as being very different, and sitting in the boardroom was really interesting, because sometimes you're, in today's language, you're a bit othered by that, like, oh, well, ye in the art school. And I'm kind of thinking there, yeah, we're in the art school, but that's a fantastic place to be. That's just like, it's really nice. And I suppose also to echo what Anne was saying about the church, I mean, we also have, because we're in a Good Shepherd, a former Good Shepherd convent, our main space is this church. So
This is in Limerick School of Art and Design.
Lovely place. But I do find the echoes to what you're talking about, the notion of that. I suppose civilization has provided us with this we're sitting in a former library, and given the kind of change in society right now, these amazing challenges, amazing conflicts that are growing, and then you realize that another part of our DNA has produced these spaces for reflection, for calm, for whatever. I remember kind of finding my way into art in all sorts of ways, of simply that if you go to a new city, where do you go to have calm? You go to the National Gallery, you go to these kind of lovely, so there's this, so it's a natural evolution. So sorry, but my role, I do other stuff as well. I do the fun. The fun part is I suppose trying to negotiate the best situation for all the students. I suppose the new very exciting part is that now that we've become at Luan and Limerick has joined together, and that Limerick School of Art and Design is part of this university, and also kind of linking in with the creative courses within at Luan. And just, I suppose, for me, my role is like just sitting here right now. This is part of the role. And I suppose the other thing is actually trying to make a difference. I suppose the role is only of value. Like we've grown, we're about 1,600 students now. And when I was started, it was like it was just in the school itself goes back to 1852, and in many different ways it's sort of. But now it's kind of great to have students who are studying different things in different places, like in Moylish, in Limerick, in Clonmel, and in Athlone, and each area brings new things to it. And I suppose the role of as a manager, the role is to kind of manage that, but also to kind of really be kind of my big concern right now is like, what course should we actually doing? There's like you're always kind of striving to be, because we have a lot of historical stuff that you wouldn't, if you were creating an art school now, you wouldn't have the same courses. You'd have different. What would that be? What sort of? And I suppose the way students are coming to us are in different ways as well. So to me, it's like every day is a school day, and every day is like a new beginning. But ultimately, it's great fun, and when it stops being great fun, it should.
An evolution there, in terms of how probably your role and even LSAD within the family of TUS is evolving.
That's really nice, and it's also nice to kind of sort of navigate your way through it. And I think to kind of segue into what's on the edges of the role or whatever. For instance, the new women's female prison opens on Wednesday in Limerick, and that's probably one of the first prisons that's been built in the country in maybe, I don't know, many years. But it's there's an academic who's written about it, and they call it like an architecture of hope and whatever. But the project team and the governor reached out and said, would they work with the art school? So so there's this whole array of work that is now that we.
So you're engaging with the community all the time.
So that's really exciting. It's also unnerving to be working in the prison environment, but it's also kind of said this is really important. So what should we be doing? How do you connect with society? And I suppose chiefly to I think what you talked about a little bit, both of you talked a little bit, is the notion of the author, like that if you could actually, one of the other points we raised off point this, you were talking about like how do you connect with, how do students, how do people begin to be responsible or begin to like have authorship. And for instance, like if you're dealing with anything, if you decide that you want to make something, and whether it's a drawing or whether it's a piece of music or a commentary, then you assume some sort of authority, and that gives you a kind of a strength of being, you know. So it's really kind of complex, and there's a I think creativity is hugely important for all of us, and I sometimes relish the idea of meeting lots of people who work in different areas, and they kind of say we'd love to get creativity and going, but it's kind of complex, and I think some people just innately have it. But I do think the dilemma that we have, and sorry for the very long answer, the dilemma we have is that people do wonderful things in art, in creative type schools. Sometimes they find it hard to find themselves in society beyond that or in roles beyond that. I'd love if people would think of the wonderful soft skills they have and how they can do that in interesting ways that are creative, but not necessarily like being the classical artist or painter or whatever. There's so many other ways that you could really enjoy your life by doing it.
Valuing the diversity and the skill set. I think about that in terms of women in the workplace. You know, we value the action-oriented type of achieving and ambition, but we need to value more the softer skills, the empathy, the emotional intelligence, the collegiality, all of those things. So together we're much better than separated or isolated or apart. Can I pick up on something you said about authorship and students? And the notion that students are authors of their own lives. They are directors of their own movies. They are the person holding the paintbrush for their own canvas. And the notion of being active, in not being passive, but being active in the authorship of your own life and lifting your head up and looking at the opportunity around you. So we have a new creative department of media and design in the Athlone campus, and that's going to be reporting in through yourself. What can students expect when they come to TUS, to TUS, in terms of the environment that they're walking into?
That's a super question, and I suppose last week was the first time I kind of formally kind of walked through all of the spaces and kind of looked at them, and I found some fantastic things, because the music spaces are to die for.
Oh,
They're beautiful,
and
beautifully,
invested in them.
and beautiful. You kind of, and I love the couch. I love the couch. So they're fantastic. And then you're looking at the graphic design, and that comes from a particular history. And you're looking at the animation, which comes from a particular history of the dials or drawing. And so you want, like, I suppose Davos would say, over the 1 week I was there, but equally we had we've been teaching our teachers for the last 40 years, and we have a new course ongoing at the moment. So the teaching hours were down to just to review what we were doing, and part of that we were walking through the school, and we were walking through first year. First year's been this is in Limerick, has been trying to change, because it's a big group of first years, and then they decide what they want to do. But simple things have happened over the last couple of years. Really simple things, like before it'd be like, oh God, we've about 200 first years, we've got 12 rooms, and we need a desk for the logistic of a chair and a desk or whatever. And the guys, I suppose, in terms of going back to my role is to lean back, actually allow things to change. So the first years over the last couple of years, began to take away things. So just before COVID, they said they went about 5K to get rid of lots of furniture. And that turned out to be brilliant because of COVID. But now they've decided that there's now 12 rooms, but they each have a different type of activity. And the students themselves over the first year, they decide for certainly the first semester where they want to be. They move around it. So walking through the space with that group from the teaching council.
Authors of their own map.
What was lovely was, like, there's a room where if you want to do kind of physical work, putting stuff together, if you want to do something with clay materials, if you want to do something with sort of drawing, kind of. So, but actually walking through the rooms, we found that here were those groups, and the furniture is very sparse now. There's places to kind of sit, and suddenly you have this, like, you're entering conversations of people that were just there a few weeks, and the students are doing different things in different places, and they're given kind of maybe very short briefs just to kind of set off ideas, but largely they're responsible or whatever. There's different ways of making it work.
Setting them free to be creative. And
So it's actually, I thought that the group were really fascinated by their reaction, that this was not a classes in any shape or form.
Yes.
This is this kind of actually active kind of conversations. And stuff like that. So
very
to me,
different to secondary school then.
And it's totally different. And the idea that was like, what were we doing all those years that we were giving a desk and a chair and sit? Now for the first 6 weeks you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then and this would have been repeated ad nauseum. So sometimes you realise that you're doing dumb things a lot of the times.
And just because that's always the way it was done.
Yeah. So it's actually trying to figure out what's at stake here, I suppose. But I do think that magical thing that happens, particularly with when people are induced to creativity, how do you keep that going? And that isn't structured in some way, and it becomes like, well, I'm now graphic designer and this is the way I think. Because I think sometimes designers can think in very straight lines. Sometimes a fine artist can think in very straight lines. So I think it's an evolving thing all the time.
So you painted a beautiful vista there of how a student in the arts might be engaging in the way in a new dawn or a new way of delivering education. But what about those who are not studying art, who are studying nursing or engineering, or like, does the university encourage people to lift their head up?
I don't think we do enough.
Yeah.
But I think now that we are a university, there's a broader role that we need to do to kind of engage with the broader population, to kind of connect them with the arts in the way. Because even one really good experience could suddenly, again, it's back to that, would say somebody like who's continuously scrolling and following media. If you actually if some of those people begin to create their own media, then it's back to that thing that they take control, that they begin to make decisions, and then I mean, it's a kind of a golden age of TV again in terms of, you know, in a certain way of really, really good materials being turned out. So I think that there's very exciting things for us. I mean, relatively recently we've more integrated broadcast and music technology and whatever. So there's game art design. So there's a lot happening. And I suppose last year we started our first studio, which is like it's called a maker station. Basically, there's lots of stuff there but you realise that people can find it very quickly, and I suppose simple things like scanning devices, where you can begin to literally make that it's not based on. It's based on a new set of skills, but it is based on being able to think what you could do with it.
Creative people to get out of their own box as such, and look at what's around them and the opportunities to be creative. So you're all the time you're encouraging people to look beyond, lift your head up, be curious, and see what. Yeah,
but you are right. I think that we do need to do more for the broader student body, and that's a new challenge.
Yeah. And you know, certainly for employers, all the big employers, the Googles and all that, they're not looking for an identikit accountant, software engineer, whatever. They're looking for people who can be creative problem solvers and who can approach a problem in a different way. And that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, isn't it? It is, but there's also other challenges. Like, for instance, one of the other projects we're working on, begin to work on, we're working on a Creative Ireland project where we're working with a community group in Bunratty, and basically they've been there for 10 years and they want to make the place just better in a sense. And now the challenge is, what does that mean? And how do you, it's within the kind of climate action project as well, what do you do that's kind of meaningful in that way? So I think there's a lot of challenges going to us, and I think again, I suppose, looking at the broader, we're at quite a complex stage of our existence in terms of Ireland has responded very well to becoming from monoculture to being multicultural, and that's also going to create challenges. Whatever at the moment is working really, really well, but equally there's future challenges in terms of climate change and population movement. So we're heading into an area where we need to be have integrity and use creativity in a very particular way.
That's an interesting point. I often think that art can be the thing that brings people together, that can help people tell a story or show a different perspective. And as we're in a multicultural existence now, it's really important to use everything we've got to connect with each other and to help understand people's stories and important social messages and all of that kind of stuff. And what do you think about the idea that people might not realise it, but they're actually already engaging with the arts in their own lives, even if they're not an artist? If they're looking at social media, like you said earlier, or if they're binge watching on Netflix, or if they follow a certain band or engaging in music.
Yeah. Well, it's I suppose getting them to cross that line, that they can be a participant, that they can be active, that they're not a passive receiver, but they actually they decision make about what they see. It's just on the way up, listening to that there's in November in Miltown Malbay, there's like a midweek funk festival. Which is like the most coolest, in the middle of November, and the main guy's coming. Apparently, this amazing bass player, but he's also a surfer. So I was just getting, as you're driving, you get these wonderful images of this guy playing bass, like still wearing the wetsuit or something, and heading out to Lehidge. So you kind of go. So there are those lovely moments where, I suppose, within I suppose the Miltown Malbay was Willie Clancy Week, but then you have a mini folk festival in the middle of the week with no alcohol. It sounds really, really kind of, so you're suddenly like, who thought this up? This is great.
And where are we going, Mike?
Yeah.
Where are we going? That sounds good.
Where are we going? We are, I said, I think the 21st, it's a good time. There's not a whole lot on in November, apart from academic stuff,
Fabulous. Aoife, I see you reacting to Mike's comments just there. Would you like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose what I'd say to anybody, and I do say this to my friends and family quite often, when they ask what contemporary art is about and why they should go to a gallery.
Word, isn't it?
Contemporary art. What does it mean? I mean,
Yeah.
there's books upon books about it, but really, contemporary art is art that's responding to what's happening in the world now, and how people in the world are experiencing life right now. So it's something that is constantly changing, and it's something that's so relevant to everybody. There's artwork and exhibitions about, the climate. There's artwork and exhibitions about gender and identity, and there's something for everyone. So I think that contemporary art is very much about what people these days bring to the table, and less so about, what you think art should have been or what art should be.
So it's part of the general conversation of what it is to be human.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Aoife. So can I put a question to the group? For a person who might say, I'm not an art buff, I leave that to the artists and to the people who know a lot about art. What would you say to them to encourage them to come into this lovely exhibit or other exhibits like it? What would you say for finish? Anne, I'll turn to you first.
Yeah, well, I would just say, I think it's been said before, you don't need to be an expert, you don't need to be able to talk about art, or you just need to come in and explore and look and take a moment and look at a picture. You don't have to look at the whole. It's often too much to go around looking at everything. I find that myself. I'd come back a few times, but come in and look at one or two paintings and try and engage even for a minute or two, and look at the colour and look at the textures in it. Just slow your brain down. We have the right side of the brain, which they say is the more creative side, and the left side of the brain. Sometimes, even myself, I go worry. This is the left side of the brain. But when you're engaging your right side of the brain, which is the creative side, or even looking at a painting, you're giving that side of the brain oxygen. You're giving yourself a rest. You're slowing yourself down, and you're engaging with something. And this is good. This is a very good way to heal. You talked about healing earlier, you know what I mean? And it does, I think that's important to do that, to give your brain a rest. Nourishment for the soul. I mean, when I have to do my accounts for my accountant, which I'm doing at the moment at the last minute, I wreck the poor man's head every year. I almost get sick because I have to look at facts and figures. I have to look at them, and I put off doing it at the last minute because this left side of my brain is usually asleep. But I do it anyway. But it's not natural for me, accountancy or doing that. So I'm just making a point. Just come in and enjoy it, and try and engage. And they're very welcoming here. It's always lovely to come in here. Anytime I've come in here, you always feel so comfortable. And ask questions if you want to. Be curious. Find out about the artist. I'm just an ordinary Mount Temple woman.
Oh, never enough, just ordinary.
And living in Knockcrockery now, I'm a grandmother now, and it's just, we're just ordinary people.
That's right.
There's nothing special.
Nothing
We're just
so
like
fancy.
everybody
You're not
else.
untouchable.
No. So just try and remember that as well. There's an ordinary person behind each work that you're looking at. So
Thank you.
I'll finish on that note myself.
And Aoife, how can you follow that statement?
Well, I absolutely agree with everything that Anne has said, 100%. And I think that one of the biggest things that intrigued me about contemporary art, because I didn't grow up going to contemporary art galleries, but you go on holidays, you go to the galleries there, the Louvre, what have you.
Far from it, you were reared.
Far from it, I was reared. But I always thought of art as being, paintings, classical portraiture. I never really understood what these mad sculptures were about, or that, art could be audio or film or performance. And that's something that I just kind of leaned into as I got older and gave more space to. But really at its core, engaging with the visual arts and coming into a gallery and looking at artwork or listening to artwork or, whatever that artwork may be it film or performance or audio or paint, engaging with it in some sense is really just engaging with your senses.
Yes.
And I think that we all live a very fast-paced life. We tend to be quite detached from the world around us and detached from ourselves. And engaging with artwork is about engaging with ourselves again and giving ourselves that space.
That's a lovely way of putting that.
Yeah, well, that's something that I've always gotten from artwork.
Yeah.
It always helps me become more attuned with myself and think about the world through different perspectives.
Mike, it's a tall order to follow these two women. I think you should say what she said.
Yeah, definitely what these people say. Should have a deal. No, I suppose I'm sitting here kind of in awe because I take what you said earlier, that we the people have paid for these spaces, and they're just so beautiful. For me, looking out at the beautiful view. So if you come in, you could come here to look out. You can come here to look in. I just think of that I think the owners as the operators, as the curators, as the whatever. I think our duty is to kind of try really hard to socialise the spaces. In other words, and that's kind of a whole lot of different things of having like music, having performances, having sort of like just. As I'm going to have next week, a protest group, but not by choice. To work because they're beautiful spaces, but we're very reverent about them. Yeah. But also we have to kind of play with these kind of mix of things, of the different experiences. We curated them to make them really kind of interesting in terms of that, so that you get a sense of getting the order, making the. I suppose the thing about these kind of beautiful, beautiful spaces is making them permeable, allowing people to
allowing a bit of irreverence and playfulness.
Yeah, to kind of and that mix is really nice because it's kind of great to get a very serious show where it's about like that. You see, like this is for somebody who's kind of deep into something, and it's something that's really playful and whatever, and it's that combination of stuff and just because I suppose that thing that we're kind of, I suppose what this is about, what we're talking here is like saying, here's these places. There's a lot of investment that somebody who's watching this has actually paid for, and why not enjoy it? It's yours. It literally is yours. It literally is yours to spend time here, and you know what? But equally, on the contract from Aoife and from Sarah's point of view is actually how do you make that enriching, so to say, that there's something you're going to discover. You're going to discover some sort of chat or conversation here, because that's going to possibly change what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
And if I could add to that, Mike, I'd say, you know, people engaging with these beautiful spaces, that's a way of ensuring that the country, the government, the taxpayer continues to invest in this area, because without the footfall and without the evidence that people are actually valuing these spaces and engaging with them, we risk not investing and not continuing to invest. So it's a fluid thing and it needs to be invested in. And when the public and students and the community around us engage with this opportunity, then we're more likely to have more of these.
Can I respond to that? There's other kind of things, but like the value, like Pat Murphy, the man who runs the RHA, he said like, it is great to have the galleries full of people and hundreds of people, but for the visitor, sometimes the one person coming in to an empty gallery where they can really enjoy the experience is as valuable. And it was kind of really, for me, it was kind of an interesting time that it isn't just the masses. It's also that the fact that we create these spaces that are. I spent on Saturday morning doing a piece with an artist, and he was talking about he's going to make a church inside a gallery space as a kind of a, because there is this kind of thing of the celebration of allowing an individual have the space.
On that note, I'd like to thank our esteemed panel members, Aoife, Mike, and thank you so much for being in conversation with us today. So art is not just confined to beautiful settings like the Luan Gallery here beside me. Art is in your heart, it's been with you all along. And we encourage you to open up your eyes to the world around you, to embrace your own curiosity and to come in and engage. Whether it's this exhibit, Symbols of Subject, or another one in your own locality, please do walk across that threshold for the first time. You might be pleasantly surprised. We look forward to meeting you again soon. Stay curious.